Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Wani, and again, today's video is going to be a bit different and a lot more serious than usual. We're going to be discussing a heartbreaking and disturbing case that recently made headlines. It's involving the tragic death of 8-year-old Demeria Hollingsworth in Humboldt. This case hits close to home for me because it happened in Tennessee, which is a place where I lived for a few years, but also the first image I saw of Demeria last week reminded me so much of one of my nieces, making this even more personal and devastating. All right, I'm going to dive right into the details. So, on July 15, 2024, 8-year-old Demeria Hollingsworth was tragically suffocated by her 12-year-old cousin while she was sleeping. This act was so shocking and heinous, especially considering it was over something as stupid as an iPhone. I can't even begin to express how disgusted and heartbroken I am over this situation. It's so hard to fathom why a child would want to kill another child over a phone. There's so many questions that came to mind, like who's responsible for this, what led to this horrible incident, and why did it even escalate to this point? So I'm going to play a news clip that covers the details of this tragic event.
8-year-old Demeria Hollingsworth's mother says she's in agony knowing she'll never see her daughter again. Hollingsworth and her 12-year-old cousin were staying with their grandmother in Humboldt for the summer when the victim's mother, Remiah Smith, says this all started with an argument over an iPhone, but she never thought twice that her child would be killed. Our sister station spoke to her tonight, but she didn't want to show her face.
My baby was 8. She didn't deserve that. You know what I'm saying? Like, she did nothing to deserve being killed.
Now, police say after viewing home security footage, the 12-year-old suspect, who will be 13 next week, allegedly used bedding to suffocate her cousin, then cleaned up the victim and repositioned her body. At the time, the two cousins shared a bunk bed.
I look at her sister and I gotta be strong for her. I can't be weak for her. Even though it hurt me real bad because why my baby? Mommy? Hold on, baby. Yeah. Like, why her? You know what I'm saying?
The 13-year-old is charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence, and the victim's mother says she's hoping for the maximum sentence.
Now, this case reminds me a lot of another tragic homicide, and that would be the murder of 6-year-old Tiffany Eunick by 12-year-old Lionel Tate back in 1999. Lionel Tate was the child of a family friend who was supposed to be watching Tiffany. I've also read that they may have been cousins, but I can't confirm. But he ended up killing her, claiming he was imitating wrestling moves he had seen on TV. Tate was initially sentenced to life in prison as a juvenile, but that was later overturned. I think Lionel Tate's case is significant because it raises questions about how we handle juvenile offenders. Tate's life sentence was overturned and he was given 10 years probation. However, he ended up being sentenced to 30 years for an armed robbery that happened in 2005. I think that is why this case of this 12-year-old girl should be handled better.
So this 12-year-old boy here, he's about to go to prison for life. Let's call him Sting. And Sting is a huge fan of pro wrestling. He loves watching WWE. His favorite was always The Rock. So one day, Sting's mom, who we'll call Mom gets a call from her friend asking if she can babysit her daughter. And the daughter we'll call Six, because she's 6. So friend asks Mom if she can babysit Six, and Mom's like, of course, bring her over. So their mom is babysitting Six. And Sting's there too, and Mom feeds them, and then she lets them watch TV. Then she heads upstairs to lay down, leaving Sting and Six downstairs to watch TV. And Sting, the big WWE fan, he doesn't want to watch TV. He wants to wrestle. So he and Six, they start play fighting, and he's showing her some moves. But Sting is much bigger than her. He's around 170 pounds, while she is about 50 pounds. So he's throwing her around the room, and he's like putting her in a headlock, and he's doing all kinds of moves. And he's getting really rough. Not to mention, they're getting loud. They're getting so loud that at one point, Mom calls out for them to quiet the hell down. Now at this point, Sting and Six have only been downstairs alone for about 45 minutes. And at around the 45-minute mark is when Sting goes upstairs. And he goes into his mom's room, because something's wrong. And Sting wakes his mom up, and he says, Mom, Six isn't breathing. So Mom jumps out of bed and then she rushes downstairs to check on her. And she finds Six laying there in the living room floor, not moving, unresponsive. And Mom immediately calls 911, but unfortunately, it's too late. Six doesn't make it. Sting had accidentally unalived her, being too rough with those wrestling moves. But then, the next day, the medical examiner performs an autopsy on Six, and she finds that Six has 35 injuries, including a cracked skull, a broken rib, all kinds of stuff. And because of that, the medical examiner rules Six's death a homicide, which means they have to charge 12-year-old Sting with murder. So then police go and arrest Sting, and he's 12, but here's his mugshot. And not only that, because of the way the laws are set up in that state, and because it's first-degree murder, they have to charge him as an adult. Which means if he gets found guilty, by law, he has to be sentenced to life. So then, boom, it's 2 years later. Sting is 14 years old now, and he's about to go on trial. So they come to Sting and they offer him a plea deal. Plead guilty and you won't get life in prison. Instead, you'll get 3 years of juvenile detention and 10 years probation. Not a bad deal. But Sting's mom believes this is all absurd. He was just a kid playing around, he's innocent, no jury will find him guilty. So she advises Sting not to take the deal. So he turns down the plea deal, and then guess what? A jury finds him guilty of first-degree murder. So at 14 years old, Sting goes to prison for life, which makes him the youngest person in the United States to ever receive a life sentence. Oh, but it gets worse. So Sting is in a juvenile prison for 3 years, and his attorney appeals his sentence, and after 3 years, it's actually overturned, because they argue that at 14 years old, Sting was not competent to stand trial in the adult court system. And it works, so now they have to let Sting go, and they're gonna straighten all that out, and then they're gonna retrial him. But instead of having him go through the whole trial process again, they offer him a plea deal. Again. Instead of going back to trial and facing life in prison, 1 year house arrest and 10 years probation. And this is a really good deal, so this time Sting takes it. And now at 18 years old, he's finally walking out of prison. No life sentence, he's finally out and he's happy, and now he has his whole life ahead of him. Until about a year later, after he's out, Sting is at someone he know's apartment, and he gets this weird idea, and so he calls Domino's and orders a pizza. And when the pizza delivery man shows up, Sting suddenly, like out of nowhere, pulls out a pew-pew and demands that he give him all his money. Sting has decided to rob the pizza guy. So pizza guy's like, F this, and he runs away. And he goes back to Domino's, and he immediately calls the police. And so police, they show up to the apartment, they identify Sting, and they arrest him. Here's his mugshot. And they charge him with armed robbery, violating his parole, and a bunch of other stuff. He goes back to court, pleads guilty, and after all that, beating a life sentence and everything, he ends up getting sentenced to 30 years in prison. And all this happened in Florida, so shout out to Florida.
I would like to discuss the pros and cons of trying the 12-year-old involved in Demeria's case as an adult. Personally, I think she should be tried as an adult, not because I want her to face harsher punishments, but just to ensure she gets the help she deserves. Being in custody longer can provide the necessary time and resources for proper rehabilitation. On one hand, the severity of the crime might warrant a harsher punishment, but on the other hand, she's still a child, and her ability to understand the consequences of her action is not fully developed. There's also the question of rehabilitation. Can we reform and rehabilitate a child who has committed such a serious crime? Now, I don't have any children yet, but I'm wondering what might cause a child to exhibit such violent behaviors. I know there are many factors that could contribute, such as exposure to violence at home or in the media, untreated mental health issues, or a lack of proper guidance and supervision. And I think it's crucial to understand these underlying causes to prevent future tragedies. This brings me to my next point. How can the parents have prevented this? Which I think is a really tough question, but it's essential to consider the role of parental supervision and the environment in which children are raised. Like, were there any signs that were missed? Was there a lack of communication or understanding? I can't completely understand what it's like to be in their shoes, but these are important questions to reflect on. And there are a few other questions I think we all should reflect on, like, was it the parents' fault? Is technology and media to blame for influencing this behavior? How can we punish the child but also help her at the same time? And are there better ways to reform and rehabilitate juvenile offenders? I know these are complex issues with no easy answers, but I think they are worth discussing. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. How do you think we should handle cases like these, and what steps can be taken to prevent future tragedies? If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you found this video insightful. Let's continue the conversation. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.